The room was steeped in a silence that felt almost tangible, broken only by the occasional hum of traffic from the street below. I sat on our worn leather couch, the fabric cold against my skin, staring blankly at the paused movie on the screen. It was a romantic comedy, Linda's choice, but the laughter and lightheartedness seemed a world away from the heavy atmosphere that now filled our living room. Linda had left hours ago, her perfume still lingering in the air, a sweet scent that now carried an undertone of betrayal. "I'll be back late. Don't wait up," she had said, her voice light, almost too casual. I had nodded, pretending to be engrossed in the movie, while every fiber of my being screamed that something was amiss. As the clock ticked past midnight, the weight of the silence grew heavier, pressing down on me with an urgency that I couldn't ignore. I picked up Linda's phone from the coffee table, intending to check the time, when a message notification caught my eye. It was from Mark, a simple "Hey, you up?" But it was enough to send a jolt of suspicion through me. I knew I shouldn't, but the temptation was too strong. With a shaking hand, I swiped the screen, and there it was. The proof of their betrayal lay bare in a string of messages that felt like a punch to the gut. "Can't stop thinking about last night." One message from Linda Reed. Mark's reply was just as damning. "Me neither. Wish we could just run away together." I felt the wave of nausea as I scrolled through months of deceit, each message a knife twisting deeper into my heart. How could they do this to me? My own brother and my wife, carrying on behind my back as if I were nothing. I was still staring at the phone, the messages blurring before my eyes, when Linda walked in. The door creaked open, and she stepped into the room, her smile fading as she saw the phone in my hand. "Liam, she began, her voice faltering. "How long, Linda?" I asked, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside me. She hesitated, then a resigned sigh escaped her lips. 6 months, she whispered, unable to meet my gaze. 6 months. The words echoed in my head, a confirmation of the betrayal that had been unfolding right under my nose. Why? It was the only question that mattered now, the only one that could possibly make sense of the senseless. Linda looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "I don't know, Liam. I'm so sorry. It just happened. Just happened." I repeated, the absurdity of the situation washing over me. My wife and my brother, their affair a sordid secret that had unraveled in the worst possible way. I stood up, my body moving on autopilot as I handed Linda her phone. "You should go," I said, my voice devoid of emotion. "Liam, please, let's talk about this," she pleaded, taking a step towards me. But I was done talking. Done with the lies, the deceit, and the betrayal. "There's nothing left to say," I replied, turning away from her, from us, from the life I thought we had built together. And in that moment, as Linda walked out of the door, I knew that our marriage, our love, was beyond repair. The unveiling of their affair had seen to that, leaving nothing but the shattered pieces of my trust and my heart in its wake. The days that followed were a blur of emotions, each moment a struggle between anger, disbelief, and an overwhelming sense of loss. I moved through our home like a ghost, each room a reminder of the life Linda and I had shared, now tainted by the shadow of her betrayal with Mark. The silence of the house echoed back to me the laughter and whispers of deceit, making it impossible to find peace. I tried to distract myself with work, with mindless television, with anything that could momentarily pull me away from the pain. But the quiet moments were the worst, when my mind would betray me, replaying their messages, imagining their encounters, each thought a fresh wound to my heart. It was during one of these restless nights that Mark called. I stared at the caller ID, my heart racing with a mix of rage and desperation. I answered, my voice cold. "What do you want?" "Liam, please, just hear me out." Mark's voice came through, tinged with a nervousness I had never heard before. "Why? So you can lie to me too?" I spat out, the anger boiling over. "It wasn't like that. It was a mistake," he stammered, trying to find the words. "A mistake? For 6 months, Mark? You betrayed me, your own brother." My voice broke, the hurt seeping through the anger. "I know, and I'm sorry, Liam. I never meant to hurt you," he pleaded, the sincerity in his voice doing nothing to soothe the pain. "Sorry doesn't need to begin to cover it," I replied, the finality in my tone leaving no room for forgiveness. The conversation ended with a click, leaving me alone once again with the deafening silence of the house. The betrayal felt even more acute now, knowing that Mark, who had been my confidant, my partner in crime since we were kids, and been the one to inflict this pain. It was a betrayal that cut deeper than Linda's, a wound to the very foundation of my family and my sense of self. In the days that followed, I found myself consumed by thoughts of their betrayal. I replayed our last family dinner over and over in my head, looking for signs I had missed. How could I have been so blind? How could they have been so cruel? I tried reaching out to friends, but the words stuck in my throat. Admitting the truth felt like giving it power. Power to destroy whatever was left of my dignity. So I remained silent, bearing the weight of their betrayal alone. One evening, as I sat in the dark, nursing a glass of whiskey, the doorbell rang. I hesitated, half hoping, half dreading it might be Linda or Mark, coming to offer some explanation, some apology that could make this all go away. But when I opened the door, it was neither. It was an old friend from college, someone unconnected to the tangled web of my current life. "Hey, Lime. I was in the neighborhood and thought I'd drop by. You okay, man? You look like hell." His words, met with concern, felt like a lifeline. Here was someone who knew nothing of my shame, my pain. "Yeah, just been going through some stuff," I replied, the understatement of the year. As we sat and talked, the conversation steering clear of anything too personal, I felt a momentary relief from the relentless pain. It was a small respite, a brief moment of normalcy in the chaos that my life had become. But as he left, the silence returned, and with it, the reality of my situation. Linda and Mark's betrayal was a wound that wouldn't heal easily, a scar that would forever mark the landscape of my heart. And as I sat there alone, I knew that the road ahead would be one of pain, anger, and eventually, I hope, healing. In the aftermath of the betrayal, a sense of numbness settled over me, a protective shell that allowed me to function in the most basic sense. Yet beneath that numbness, a storm was brewing, a mix of anger, hurt, and a desperate need for closure. It was during one of those long, sleepless nights that the idea first took root. If I couldn't escape the pain, maybe I could control it, channel it into something tangible. I needed to confront them, but not in anger or desperation. I needed a plan. I spent the next few days observing, thinking, and plotting. The more I considered my options, the clearer my objective became. I wasn't looking for revenge. What I wanted was acknowledgement, an understanding of the depth of their betrayal. I wanted them to see the pain they had caused, to feel a fraction of the hurt that was now my constant companion. The first step was to gather evidence. I went through Linda's phone again, this time methodically, taking screenshots of their messages, their plans, their declarations of love that twisted the knife deeper with every word. It was excruciating work, but with each piece of evidence, I felt a sense of purpose solidify within me. Next, I arranged a meeting. I sent Linda a message, my words carefully chosen to avoid any hint of my intentions. "We need to talk. Can we meet at the cafe on 5th tomorrow at 10? Her reply came quickly, tinged with a cautious hope. "Yes, of course. I'll be there." I then called Mark, the conversation awkward and strained. "Mark, we need to clear the air. Meet me at the cafe on 5th tomorrow. 10 a.m. There was a pause, a moment of hesitation before he agreed. "All right, Lime, I'll be there." The stage was set. The morning of the confrontation, I arrived early, securing a secluded table at the back of the cafe. The minutes ticked by slowly, each one stretching out as I waited for them to arrive. Linda was the first to walk in, her eyes searching the cafe until they landed on me. There was a tentative smile on her lips, a glimmer of hope that made my heart ache. Mark arrived moments later, his posture rigid, the guilt written plainly on his face as he saw me sitting there. They took their seats, the air thick with unspoken words and tension. "Liam, Linda began, but I held up a hand to stop her. "I've brought you both here because we need to face what has happened, what you both have done." My voice was calm, but I could see the impact of my words on their faces. "Liam, we're so sorry. We never wanted to hurt you," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sorry doesn't even begin to cover it," I replied, echoing my earlier conversation with him. I pulled out my phone, placing it on the table. "I know everything, all of it." The color drained from their faces as I began to read out some of the messages, the words hanging heavy in the air between us. With each message, I watched as the reality of their actions settled in, the weight of their betrayal becoming undeniable. "Liam, please," Linda pleaded, tears in her eyes. "Can we find a way past this?" I looked at them both, the hurt and anger swirling inside me. I came here for closure, not forgiveness. You both need to understand the depth of your betrayal, the pain it has caused. Maybe one day I'll be able to move past this, but for now, I need space. I need to heal. They nodded, the finality of my words settling over us like a shroud. We sat in silence for a moment longer, the air heavy with regret and lost possibilities. As I stood to leave, I looked at them both, a part of me still unable to comprehend how we had reached this point. Take care of each other, I said, the words bitter on my tongue. I walked out of the cafe, leaving behind the shattered remains of what had once been my life. The plan had been executed, the confrontation had taken place, but the pain remained, a constant reminder of the betrayal that had changed everything. The days following the confrontation at the cafe passed in a haze, each one blending into the next with little to differentiate them. My conversations with Linda and Mark had ceased entirely, their presence in my life reduced to haunting memories and the occasional glimpse of their lives through the lens of social media, a habit I found difficult to break despite the pain it caused. It was during one of these aimless evenings, as I scrolled through my phone, that I received a message from an unknown number. The preview showed just a few words, but they were enough to send a jolt of adrenaline coursing through me. I know what happened. We need to talk. Curiosity, mingled with a sense of foreboding, propelled me to open the message. The sender claimed to have information about Linda and Mark, something they insisted I needed to know. Skepticism warred with the desperate need for answers, for anything that might make sense of the chaos my life had become. We agreed to meet at a quiet bar downtown, a place where the chances of running into someone we knew were slim. I arrived early, the weight of anticipation making my heart race. The minutes ticked by slowly until a figure approached, someone I recognized but had never really known. Alex, a colleague of Linda's. Liam? Alex's voice was tentative, unsure. Yes, you said you had something to tell me. My response was guarded, my trust eroded by months of deceit. Alex nodded, taking a seat across from me. I debated whether I should tell you this, but after seeing how things unfolded, I felt you had a right to know. The story that followed was one I could have never anticipated. Alex revealed that Linda and Mark's affair had not been the result of a spontaneous attraction, but had been carefully orchestrated by Mark from the beginning. He had been facing significant debts, ones that threatened to ruin him, and had somehow concluded that seducing Linda, with her access to our joint accounts and savings, was his way out. I'd overheard him talking to someone about it, Alex said, a look of genuine remorse on their face. I thought it was just drunken boasting at first, but then I saw how things were playing out. Why tell me this now? I asked, my voice hollow, the implications of Alex's words slowly sinking in. Because it's not right. What he did, what he planned, you deserve better, Liam. Alex's gaze held mine, earnest and sincere. The revelation shattered what little peace I had managed to find in the aftermath of the betrayal. The pain of the affair was one thing, but to learn it had been a calculated move by Mark, exploiting Linda's feelings and our trust for his own gain, added a layer of betrayal so profound it left me reeling. Thank you for telling me, I managed to say, though the words felt inadequate for the magnitude of what Alex had shared. As I left the bar that night, the world around me felt altered, as if I were seeing it through a different lens. The pain and anger were still there, but mingled with them now was a sense of clarity. Mark's actions, his betrayal, was not just a personal affront, but a calculated manipulation that had ensnared us all. The drive home was a blur, my mind racing with the implications of Alex's revelations. How could I have missed it? How deep did Mark's deceit run? And Linda, had she been a victim in this too, or was she complicit in Mark's plans? The house felt even emptier when I arrived, the silence a stark reminder of the void that Linda and Mark's actions had left in my life. But amidst the turmoil, a resolve began to take root. I needed to confront Mark, not just for the affair, but for the calculated betrayal that had set everything in motion. The night of revelation had peeled back the layers of deceit, exposing the raw, ugly truth beneath. And with that truth came a determination to seek answers, to confront the architect of my pain, and perhaps to finally start the process of healing. The revelation from Alex had ignited a fire within me, a burning need for confrontation and clarity. I spent the night tossing and turning, replaying the conversation in my mind, each detail fanning the flames of my resolve. By morning, my course was set. I would confront Mark, demand the truth, and expose the depth of his treachery. I reached out to him, my message simple and direct. We need to talk, face to face. Today, his response was almost immediate, a sense of urgency in his words that matched my own. I'll be at the park by the river. Noon. The park was quiet, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. Mark was already there, waiting on a bench overlooking the water, his posture tense, the lines of his face drawn tight with apprehension. As I approached, he stood, the weight of our shared history hanging heavy between us. "Liam," he began, his voice strained. "I know why you're here." "Do you?" My voice was cold, my anger barely contained. "Do you really understand what you've done?" Mark's gaze faltered, guilt etched into every feature. "I made a mistake. A terrible mistake. But it wasn't all a lie. My feelings for Linda, they were real, even if the way we started was wrong." "A mistake?" I echoed, incredulous. "You calculatedly pursued my wife to get out of your debts. You used her, you used us, and you call that a mistake?" He winced, the truth of my words hitting their mark. I know how it sounds. I was drowning, Liam. The debts, the threats. I thought I had no way out, but that's no excuse. I've ruined everything. My friendship with you, my relationship with Linda. I've lost it all. And what about Linda? The question hung in the air, heavy with accusation. Was she just a pawn in your game? Mark shook his head, a mixture of defiance and despair in his eyes. "No. It started out that way, but my feelings for her became real. I love her, Liam. I really do." Love? The word felt foreign, bitter on my tongue. You have a twisted way of showing it. We stood in silence, the chasm between us too vast to bridge with words. Finally, I spoke, my voice steady despite the storm of emotions within. "I came here looking for answers, for some kind of closure. But I see now that's not possible. Not yet." Mark nodded, the resignation in his posture speaking volumes. "I'm sorry, Liam. Truly. I know it doesn't change anything, but I am." I turned to leave, the finality of the moment settling over me. But before I could take more than a few steps, Mark's voice stopped me. "Liam?" I paused, not turning back. "What?" "If it means anything, I'm going to make it right, with the debts, with everything. I owe you both that much." The words hung in the air, a small, inadequate attempt at atonement. I didn't respond, the gulf between his intentions and the reality of our situation too wide to bridge with promises. As I walked away, the park and the river fading into the distance, I felt a strange sense of detachment. The confrontation, the revelations, they had changed nothing and everything. The path ahead was uncertain, the process of healing only just beginning. But for the first time since the affair had come to light, I felt a flicker of hope, a sense that perhaps there was a way forward, not just for me, but for all of us caught in the aftermath of betrayal. In the days that followed my confrontation with Mark, a profound sense of mourning enveloped me. It wasn't just the loss of my marriage to Linda, or even the betrayal of a friend. It was the death of the future I had envisioned, one that had been irrevocably altered by deceit and manipulation. I found myself wandering through the house we had shared, each room a testament to the life we had built together. The silence was oppressive, a constant reminder of the void left in the wake of Linda's departure. It was during one of these aimless wanderings that I came across a box of old photos, a tangible link to happier times. As I sifted through them, the weight of my grief threatened to overwhelm me. It was then that the doorbell rang, a jarring sound in the quiet of the house. I hesitated before answering, unsure if I was ready to face the world outside my grief. But when I opened the door, I found Linda standing on the other side, her eyes mirroring the turmoil I felt. "Liam," she began, her voice quivering with emotion. "Can we talk?" I nodded, stepping aside to let her in. The familiarity of her presence was both comforting and excruciating, a reminder of all that had been lost. We sat in silence for a moment, the air between us charged with unspoken words. Finally, Linda spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry, Liam, for everything. I never meant to hurt you." I wanted to rage, to unleash the torrent of pain and betrayal I felt. But as I looked at her, I saw not just the woman who had betrayed me, but the person I had loved for so many years. "Linda, why?" It was the question that had haunted me, the one that demanded an answer even as I feared what it might be. She took a deep breath, her gaze fixed on her hands. I was lost, Liam. I felt like I was drowning, and Mark, he was there. It was a mistake, the biggest mistake of my life. But I can't undo it. All I can do is try to make amends, to be the person I should have been all along. The honesty in her words, the raw pain and regret, struck a chord within me. I don't know if I can forgive you, Linda. Not yet, but I appreciate you coming here, trying to explain. Tears glistened in her eyes as she nodded. I understand. I just needed you to know, to hear it from me. I hope in time you can find it in your heart to forgive me. As she stood to leave, a part of me wanted to reach out, to hold on to the remnants of what we had. But I knew it was too late for us, that the journey ahead was one I needed to navigate alone. After she left, I returned to the box of photos, the memories they contained now bittersweet. The mourning for what had been lost was profound, but within it, I began to find a sense of closure, a realization that while the past could not be changed, the future was still unwritten. In the solitude of the house, I allowed myself to grieve not just for the end of my marriage, but for the loss of trust, the death of dreams, and the painful process of letting go. It was a mourning that was necessary, a step towards healing, and eventually towards forgiveness. Weeks turned into months, and the raw edges of my pain began to heal, slowly stitched together by time and introspection. The process was not linear, marked by days of progress, shadowed by nights of setback, but gradually, the good days outnumbered the bad. I found solace in solitude, in the rediscovery of passions and pursuits that had fallen by the wayside during my marriage. It was during this period of self-renewal that I reconnected with Sarah, an old friend from college whose empathetic ear and wise counsel had been a source of comfort in the past. We met for coffee on a crisp autumn morning, the world around us awash with the vibrant hues of change. It seemed fitting, a backdrop that mirrored my own journey. Liam, Sarah greeted me, her smile warm and genuine. It's good to see you looking so alive. I chuckled, acknowledging the truth in her observation. It feels good to be alive, to finally feel like I'm moving forward. Sarah's expression softened, her eyes reflecting a depth of understanding. I've been worried about you, after everything that happened. I nodded, the weight of gratitude heavy in my chest. I know, and I can't thank you enough for being there, even when I was too caught up in my own grief to reach out. We sipped our coffee in companionable silence for a moment before Sarah spoke again, her voice tentative. So what's next for Liam? Have you thought about what you want to do now? The question hung in the air, ripe with possibility. I took a moment to consider my answer, the future suddenly a canvas yet to be painted. I've been doing a lot of thinking, actually. I realize I don't want to be defined by my past, by the pain and the betrayal. I want to start fresh, maybe travel for a bit, see the world through new eyes. Sarah's smile was encouraging, her excitement for me palpable. That sounds amazing, Liam, and so brave. It takes a lot of courage to step out into the unknown like that. Brave or foolish, I quipped, though the idea genuinely excited me. But I feel like it's something I need to do, to find a part of myself that got lost along the way. Our conversation meandered from there, touching on dreams deferred and aspirations reborn, the kind of talk that feeds the soul and lights the spark of adventure. As we parted ways, Sarah's words stayed with me, a beacon of encouragement as I embarked on this new chapter. Remember, Liam, she had said, her hand on my arm, this isn't just about moving on. It's about moving forward, about writing a new story that's all your own. I can't wait to see where it takes you. Her words echoed in my mind as I walked away, the crisp air invigorating, filled with the promise of new beginnings. The pain of the past, though not forgotten, felt distant, a chapter closed to make way for the new dawn that lay before me. With each step, I felt lighter, unburdened by the weight of what had been and buoyed by the endless possibilities of what was yet to come. It was a feeling of liberation, of hope, and of a deep, abiding sense of peace. The road ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and unknowns, but for the first time in a long time, I was eager to walk it, to discover where it led and who I would become along the way. The new dawn was not just a metaphor for the day, but for my life, a life reborn from the ashes of despair, ready to embrace the light of a future yet unwritten.